Hi, my name is Ella Mashiach, and today I have the great pleasure of interviewing Mr. AmirNetz, Distinguished Engineer at Microsoft. Mr. Netz, first of all, congratulations on Power Pivot passing the 100,000 downloads. Sorry.
Thank, thank you, Ella. And please don't call me Mister. Call me Amir.
Power Pivot has a lot in it. The application itself, the DAX, and the management inside SharePoint. If I'm just starting Power Pivot, how would you suggest I outline the subjects I need to learn?
I think the way we design Power Pivot is that we assume that the user will pick up the things naturally as they go along. Our assumption is that the user is the power user of Excel. You know, the top 5 to 10% of the Excel users. And we think that what we try to do is provide value at all levels. You don't have to learn a lot to start using Power Pivot. At the beginning, we think people will just use Power Pivot just to bring data and integrate it from multiple sources. They like the idea of being able to create relationship between tables, the ability to have a lot of data, much larger volumes of data than typically fit into Excel. And we think that at the beginning, that's what they'll find. Eventually, they'll start using it more, and they'll discover that there are also this DAX language calculation. They'll say, you know, I kind of like the idea of adding more calculated columns. And later, I can do some more sophisticated measures. And they'll just pick it up as they dig into the product based on their need. They'll start with the simple things and go for the more complex stuff. You know, you can go very deep with DAX, and when you go very deep with DAX, just like with Excel, it can become more complicated and you need to master it. But it's not something that you have to start with. There's so much stuff that you'll find without any kind of training, any kind of book reading, you can do with Power Pivot, and we expect that that's how people will pick it up and progress naturally from there to as their need requires.
Okay. Power Pivot is built on the analysis services platform. Are there plans in the next release to add hierarchies and MDX into it?
Yeah, certainly what you find is that Power Pivot will get a lot of features, specifically features that are existing today in analysis services. And he mentioned, for example, KPIs and maybe hierarchies. These things are something that, KPIs, I'm pretty certain you'll find it there. Hierarchies, I think it's very likely. You'll find maybe additional features. I'm not going to commit today to the set of features of the next release, but certainly a lot of the great features of the classic analysis services, the enterprise-wide analysis services, will also end up in Power Pivot, and vice versa. The Power Pivot experience of building those models for the end users, a lot of those UI elements will be available for people who build corporate BI models in analysis services.
Interesting. On Power Pivot Pro, Rob Coley's and Casper de Jong's blog, you talked about plans to expose Power Pivot's API. When is that plan, and what sort of functionality will you enable through it?
So we're going to have, today you can work with APIs against the models that are created in Power Pivot. You can send DAX queries, or MDX queries to those. You can go and build calculated measures against them. Actually, Excel itself has these built-in features that it uses the APIs, and you can as well use the APIs. It's standard MDX. It's fully compatible with analysis services. So that's something that you can find today. What we don't have today is, and I say, a documented way to go and create a good Power Pivot style model where the thing that fits into the template of seeing tables with relationship, because
best practices or best practices
no,
analyzer?
It's not a practice, it's a pattern. If you look at the underlying structure of the Power Pivot model, it's essentially a UDM underneath, but this UDM has a very specific pattern. Okay? It is, for example, every table that you see in Power Pivot has a dimension and a measure group attached to each other. They always come in pairs.
Yeah.
There is no API that right now that guarantees that the thing that you're creating through the API is actually always forcing you to put it in pairs. That's something that we don't have today, and that's something that we are very likely to have, an API like that, as we release the next release, a proper way to go and build these kind of models, either in Power Pivot or in analysis services.
Okay. Right now, you can connect and enhance your data in Power Pivot add-in for Excel, and Excel itself functions as a viewer for that data. You can also use data mining add-in for Excel to analyze the data. Are you also planning to include data cleansing into Excel?
So data cleansing is, just to be clear, which data cleansing is not something that you'll find in Power Pivot itself.
No.
But um, but I think that the team who works on what we call data quality services is very aware of the need of end users to go and make sure that they have high quality data. We know that the high quality data is something that is very important in any attempt to analyze data or do a BI project. And I think they are, I've seen some of their plans, they're very exciting. And I will let the team itself decide when it reveals how it's going to address the data quality problem and the tools it's going to provide. But I know that they are very aware of the needs of Excel users to be able to get this kind of functionality.
Okay. The next release for SQL Server is scheduled for 2011. Will the next release for Power Pivot necessarily coincide with that?
Yes, the next release of Power Pivot will be the next release of SQL Server. It's going to be the second half of 2011, I think, I hope. And yes, new Power Pivot and a lot of new other stuff.
Okay. Last but not least, you have a lot of patents in your name. Can you give us some insight on what sparks innovation for you?
It's something that typically something that comes very naturally to me. Sometimes it's the problems that I'm seeing users struggle with, and I'm thinking, wow, there must be a better way to do stuff, and I started thinking about that. Sometimes I'm seeing any solution in another space, and I can say, hey, we can do something similar in my space, and figure out how to take some similar ideas and mold them into BI. It doesn't have to be anything with computers. I can see something in a car and say, that's interesting. This is really interesting a way of doing things. Why can we do it in computing as well, in algorithmic way, in BI? And sometimes it just you never know where they come from. It comes in the shower. It comes when I'm sleeping. It just comes. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much for your time. It was a pleasure. And my name is Al Mashiach. Back to you.
Thank you, Eva.
Thank you.
Okay.